All right, is everybody ready to get started? Okay. All right, well, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us for a presentation on the 2021 bond proposal for DeWitt Public Schools. I know that some people are watching this live and others will view the presentation once it's been posted online. So whichever is the case, I appreciate you taking the time to tune in. I am John Dieter, the superintendent for DeWitt Public Schools. At least that'll be my title until June 30th, when Dr. Shauna Spickard will take over as superintendent. The purpose of this presentation is to provide information about the need for capital improvements in the district and to explain how an extension of our current bonds can cover the cost of these improvements without increasing taxes. Joining me for the presentation tonight are Ron Boswinkle and Jeff Hogue from GMB Architecture and Engineering and Art Eckert of Plant Moran Cressa. Also tuning in is our Assistant Superintendent for Facilities and Finance, Rob Spagnolo. GMB and Plant Moran Cressa are two of our main partners on this project, and they have all worked with us on past projects as well, so I'm happy to have them joining us for this one. To understand how we got here, I'd like to provide a little bit of background information. When I started in the district in January of 2011, we were wrapping up a $9 million bond project that included renovations to the parking lots at Scott School and Herbison Woods. We made upgrades to the stadium concourse, including a new ticket booth and concession stand. We redid the tennis court surfaces, put in a new team room, and we did some mechanical upgrades as well, and some other miscellaneous items such as new lockers at the middle school. It was still the junior high at that time. And by 2015, however, it was pretty apparent that we had some other pressing needs. Such as safety upgrades, secure entrances at each school, for example. The parking lots at the high school and Shavy Road Elementary needed much attention. And if you recall, those of you that have been in the community, Panther Pride and Pride Drive probably had more patches and potholes than they had pavement. Additionally, we were out of space at our early childhood programs, and we needed to upgrade our technology infrastructure and classroom devices. Those needs were pretty obvious, but we did conduct a full facility study that looked at less visible items such as roofs and mechanical systems. That study identified those immediate needs, but it also identified some needs that could wait 5-10 years. So with discussions with the district and some community stakeholders, we determined that it made sense to tackle our immediate needs with a mid-sized bond that went to vote in 2016. That allowed us to move very quickly to fix the roads and to put the secure entrances in. And we decided that some of the costs or some of the items could wait another 5 years, and that it made sense to get more life out of the roofs and mechanical systems. We figured that at that point, they did have at least another 5, 6, 7 years of life in them, and it didn't make sense to replace them prematurely. And basically then we knew that we would be pursuing another bond in the near future, and that's pretty much where we stand now. So in 2020, in the fall of this school year, we commissioned another facility study, and we've put together a plan that will address our needs for at least the next 10 years. And if we can go to the next slide, please. As we expected, some of the needs that we identified in 2015 and 16 have become pressing. For example, the high school turned 20 years old last year, and as the leak in the roof over the center court of the gym tells us, that roof is at the end of life. As temperatures reached in the high 80s this past week, we were again reminded of the need to have air conditioning in all of the schools and classrooms to maintain a healthy learning environment. And of course, as the pandemic has taught us or made us learn, we're all ready to make maximum use of our technology. And we know that it's time to move towards one-to-one devices and make sure that our staff and students have all the devices and technology they need at the ready. So these items of mechanical, athletics, extracurricular, a turf field, for example, will be some of the highlights of this bond. But again, the point of this presentation is to dive in just a little bit deeper and take a look at these items. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it on to some of our partners who are going to take the lead in the presentation and go into a little more depth with some of the needs we've identified and how we're going to go about addressing those needs. So I think I'm passing it on now to Ron and Jeff, if I'm correct. And Ron, I think you're muted if you are the speaker here.
We've only been doing this for a year. So, yeah, so as you alluded to earlier, in last summer, we had our team come out and do assessments of the facilities, and that assessment team was comprised of construction administration personnel, engineers, architects, interior designers, a broad spectrum of people that would go through the buildings and just assess them from top to bottom. We were looking at things like exterior building envelope conditions, roofing, as you said, parking lots, playgrounds, interiors, the finishes in the buildings, and all the mechanical systems. Basically just all the way through the building, just to get an overall overview of what the conditions were. And as you said, John, earlier, that there were some items that we were not surprised that we found: roofing, mechanical systems that needed improvements, and we went through and just documented all the different things that were in that that we assessed. What we did was we categorized them in 1 to 3 year increments, 4 to 6 year increments, and 7 to 10 year increments to start seeing what categories they would fall into as far as years that the improvements should be made, and that allowed us to go through and focus our attentions on what were the most immediate items, but also what were things that could be pushed out farther if we determined that was the desire for the district.
All right.
So what you see on the next slide is this is just a breakdown of all the different buildings, the years that they were built, the square footages of each of the buildings. You've got over a 500,000 square feet of space throughout the district in your educational facilities, and then it just breaks down the occupancy of the buildings, showing that you're very stable in your occupancy, even a little bit of growth in some of the buildings, but so it didn't show that there was high need for additions, but there was high need for renovation of existing facilities, and just trying to prolong the life expectancy of the buildings. I think in one of our next slides we show that the average age of our buildings is about 52 years old throughout the district. From here, I'm going to hand it over to Art, and he's going to walk through some of the finances.
Thanks, John. Again, Art Eckert with Plante Moran Cresa. As John alluded to, he's given a very high-level view of some of the items that we were looking to tackle as part of this bond. The overall bond is no new tax increase. So we can levy the scope of all the work that we're going to get into. Ron and Jeff will go through the scope of work further down in the presentation, but be able to tackle all this work that is in need of the district, and again, at no new taxes. Right now, the team is looking at about a $66 million bond. It would be issued in 3 different series. And again, the reason we went through many iterations of this is to provide the most cost-effective approach to be able to complete this type of work without handcuffing the district in the future. So the district could actually levy a lot higher bond, but at this point, it made the most sense to tackle the immediate needs and some of the educational needs of the district at the $66 million level. Next slide, please, Caitlin. Thank you. This slide is meant to show and illustrate some of your neighboring districts and some of the costs of the bond issues that they're issuing currently. Again, I think this is a good statement of how the districts have been good stewards of the citizens' tax dollars, and is able to stay well below some of the neighboring districts' bond issues. And again, this is keeping infrastructure in good shape, addressing what needs to be addressed before it gets beyond the point of failure, and complete replacement is needed. I guess next slide, please. So Ron alluded to a little bit earlier how we've gotten to this point in the process to date. The facility assessment was done last summer with aggregation of many line items of information and needs of the district, along with some of the current wants, technology-wise, furniture, building envelope indoor air quality. So that 10-year capital plan is created, and out of that comes the tie together with the actual bond application. So at this point, I'd like to roll it back over to Ron and Jeff, who will go into some more of the detail of each facility and some of the items that we're looking to take care of with this proposed bond. Ron?
Yeah, so as I said earlier, if we look at the district-wide improvements we're looking at, it was not anything that surprised us to see extensive mechanical upgrades. As with any component in a building, they have life expectancies, and a lot of the equipment is either at its life expectancy or will be getting to that by the time the bond gets completed. So we found that there were extensive mechanical upgrades, technology upgrades that will involve Sherry and her team. Safety and security enhancements that will improve the security of the facilities, interior finishes such as ceilings and floorings, replacements and pavements. Even though there are areas of the district that have been repaved recently, there are others that have not. And then even some of the ones that have been repaved with the earlier bond work will be coming to the end of their life expectancy by the time we get to the end of the bond that we're looking at now. Energy efficiency is always something that we look at with regards to any kind of lighting upgrades or mechanical system upgrades that we can make, because those tend to pay for themselves fairly quickly and provide long-term savings for the district on an annual basis. And then furniture and equipment upgrades that would go into all the buildings, just to promote, better learning environments throughout the district. So first, now Early Childhood Center, we were looking at all of those different things that we just talked about, but highlighting a few things. Energy efficient infrastructure, that was the mechanical systems, the electrical systems that we were talking about, doing the replacements on to provide some energy efficiencies. Roof replacement, as with any roof replacement job, it's not just about making the building weather tight. It's also about providing energy efficiency with those by increasing the insulation where we see appropriate. Playground upgrades and courtyard upgrades, those are those kinds of things that the students see on a regular basis, and those are part of the consideration as well. Shavy Road, parking lot improvements, roof replacement, as we talked about earlier, energy efficient infrastructure, and the outdoor work where we would have playground upgrades and building perimeter sidewalk replacements. At David Scott Elementary, a lot of the same things that we've already talked about. Restroom renovations is one of those that was important in that building, as was casework. When we're talking about casework, that's the cabinetry in the classrooms, and that is well beyond its life expectancy. And we're going to be looking at making improvements to that will improve the storage in those classrooms. And again, the energy efficient infrastructure that keeps coming up. Herbison Woods, a lot of the same items. Repurpose outdated classrooms. That's going in and taking a look at what was the purpose originally intended for those classrooms, and how do we update those so that they can be adapted to 21st century learning. Exterior envelope upgrades. When we're talking about those types of upgrades, we're talking about the stucco that you see on the outside of the building in a lot of places is actually failing and needs to be replaced. And again, the cabinetry improvements that you see in that last bullet point. DeWitt Middle School, similar themes here. Restroom renovations was one that came up on that list. Locker room refresh to bring those up to better standards than what they currently are, and the age-old energy efficient infrastructure. And DeWitt High School, roofing replacements to take care of some of those leaking issues that John had mentioned earlier. Repurposing of outdated classrooms and labs so that they can, again, be 21st century learning environments. Band storage at the high school, pool renovations, and bleacher renovations or replacements of bleachers, and again, energy efficient infrastructure. The bus and maintenance garage, creation of a new maintenance facility will allow the maintenance to operate outside of the current bus facility, and will allow us to remove the old brown storage building that you see in the lower right-hand corner. Technology upgrades will allow them to manage the fleet better and manage their maintenance practices, and remodeling of the existing transportation building to make that a better environment for the staff and the drivers that use that on a daily basis, and then additional bus garage maintenance equipment. Technology and security, we are looking at providing one-to-one devices throughout the district. As John said earlier, if anything we've come out of the COVID era with, it's the knowledge that technology is very important as a curriculum delivery method, and can help support the building staff. Sound systems to allow the teacher to be heard throughout the classroom, rather than being at the front of the classroom and having students at the back not understanding what's being said. Fire alarm upgrades for safety. Access control systems is part of the security systems, where you're able to better control who's getting into the buildings and who's being prevented from coming in. Additional security camera installation, so you can monitor what's going on at the perimeter of the buildings, and in some cases inside the buildings, and the security software that runs the whole operations. Athletics and extracurricular, turf field installation at the football field. So replacement of the existing grass field with artificial turf, which is something that really helps out with the management of the facilities, from the standpoint of you can have more people participating in the activities that are desired, throughout the school district, but also the community. And can get people on the field earlier in the spring, keep them on the field later in the fall if you want to, and just keep rotating people on and off the field throughout the year. New stadium press box to replace the existing press box, which is beyond its useful life. Track improvements, baseball and softball field enhancements to address some of the issues that we've seen out there. And lighting upgrades, a teaching tower for the band, new stadium sound system, and basketball and gym facility upgrades.
Thanks, Ron. Hopefully this provides a pretty high level information and helps paint a picture of the goals and needs of the district. It provides a background of how the process was completed through the facility assessment, creating a 10-year capital plan. Gaining all the input from all the building leads, all those principals and other stakeholders within the districts. And hopefully it shows that there's a strategy for the most cost-effective way to approach planning for those needs and for the goals. So the timeline that you see here is a few of the next steps at a high level. Some of the items that you'll see come through the Board of Education is the application approval on June 3rd. And then you'll see how things roll through the summer. More information will become available, and a lot more details become available leading up to the election day on November 4th. Next slide, please, Caitlin. As I alluded to, for more information, the school's website, the bond update page will begin to be populated with more and more information, frequently asked questions. And if you do have any questions, please use the email address that's shown here, and your questions will be addressed and posted. But I'd like to thank everybody on the team, obviously GMB and the district and all the stakeholders, for all the work that's gone into this. It's a heavy lift to gather all this information, prioritize, and come up with a total value. So I'd like to hand it back over to John real quick to close up the presentation.
Sure. Well, thank you, Art, and thank you, Ron and Jeff, for joining us tonight and sharing the information. Again, as Art said, if you have questions about it, please do submit them to the DPS address that was on the previous slide. We will compile a frequently asked question document and continue to provide information as needed to our community. If this is something you're interested in getting involved in, would like to be part of a bond campaign for us, please contact me and let me know, and I'll pass that information along. And again, I thank you for your time in this presentation and look forward to working with the entire community and our partners as we move forward on